So warm welcome to each and everybody. My name is Supreeta and I'm the AVP of Growth at Extra Edge. Today, I would want to thank each and every one of you who have taken the time out to join this episode 4 of our Rethink series, which is, focused on growth and knowledge sharing. First of all, I would want to give a brief introduction about Rethink, also the topic that we have taken up today in this particular session. And then we will have a quick introduction of the eminent speakers that we have that have, honored this request and taken that time out to join us today to share their learning and experiences. Soon after that, we will have the discussion primarily focused on the processes, the people and the products, what it takes to build a world-class admission and marketing process. Also, we have a rapid fire round soon after that, where I have put together, 5 surprise questions for the speakers. I don't think they come across this every day, but yes, I would want to hear them out, ask some tough questions at the end of the day, so that we have some solid learning happening today. And thereafter, we'll have a quick Q&A. So feel free to drop in your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom. So we at Extra Edge have been pioneers in, building CRM, admission and marketing automation for the education industry. We do a lot of interactions with, the 175 plus institutes, the 2,800 counselors. And in our interactions, we have many a times come across, questions like, what does a very good admission process look like? What does a good marketing strategy look like? And we wanted to take this challenge head on creating powerful content, powerful playbooks, which, budding or upcoming, young people who join this industry, young directors of marketing and admission can take it up, do, pull in the content and get started immediately, right? So that's where this topic we have chosen today, setting up a world-class admissions and marketing process. And we have some of the most eminent, experienced, seasoned people who have done it all, I must have to say, over years together. And really glad that they have agreed to come and share their learnings with us today. So I'll quickly jump to introducing. I don't think they do need introductions, but I'll do my bit and my best here. So we have Mr. Sudhakar Rao, Director of Branding at ICFI University. He's been there for close to about 9 years now. And to give a quick brief about him, I know him to be a voracious reader. He loves to have, I've seen him having books on, economic reforms for that matter. And he is undoubtedly a thought leader, and comes with a lot of experience, prominently expertise in branding and marketing. So what would be your one-line description of yourself?
Good afternoon, first of all, and thank you for inviting me to this session. And good afternoon to all the hundreds of participants who registered, and they are actually listening out to all of us. My one-line response to you is that call me a learner, I'll be very happy, and that pushes me to continue to be a learner. Thank you.
I think one of the essences of life and progress and growth is to be able to learn, which I think many people fail because they're not able to. Excellent. So thank you for, being here with us today, sir. I also have Manish, sir, Mr. Manish Dalmia, who is the Director of Marketing and, Strategy out at NMIMS University. And thank you for taking the time out, sir. I know you as a high growth impact marketeer. You're a award-winning T-shaped C-suite marketeer. What would be your one-line description about yourself?
Lifelong learner and as a marketer at core, and I believe that marketing is a combination of various things. So we have to understand audience sentiments and try to craft your marketing strategies accordingly for better results.
Excellent. Thank you for accepting this invitation and being here with us, sir. We are also joined by Dr. Malhar. Yes, we are also joined by Dr. Malhar, who is has been a founding director of Avantika University. He's a strategist. He's also done his PhD in strategic management, and he's a liberal educator as well as a critical thinker, I would have to say. What would be your one line about yourself, sir?
Okay, that's all typically has been covered. But yes, I love research, so I would love to be named after that, because research is not restricted to only academics. That's one part. And the most important, I believe in cross-discipline and multicultural learnings. That's what my strength has been, and that's how I am.
Excellent. I think you're at the right place where there is, I think, growing disciplines every day, in fact. So that brings me to my first question for the day. This question is directly pointed at Manish ji, it is for you. So we have seen the millennial persona of the student, right, who takes in admissions evolving over the years, and NMIMS being one of the prominent distance learning institutions today with lakhs of students coming in. Now, what would be your one bit about, or what would be your change in process that you have adopted in order to, you know, adopt to this ever-changing millennial and the Generation Z?
So yeah, good that you asked this question, because this is very, very important for all the stakeholders. So I will divide this into two parts. First is to understanding the persona in a brief, because it's very it's very important to understand the audience, the nature of your audience, the segment. I'm very traditional marketing that way, that your segmentation, targeting, positioning is your key, the first key to success. Second is your product. You should know your product and services. Coming back to your millennial personality, you have to understand that they are high in technology, they're early adopters, they have very short attention span. They're somebody who have very strong POV, which is a point of view on anything. Today, if you go and talk to a youngster, and you get to know that they hold very strong belief and systems with them in terms of what they believe is what you believe may not be what they believe. So they want to go by their POVs. They're also very good at multitasking. That means they, at any given point in time, if you see a youngster, they are on 10 to 12 different kind of frames on their mobile phone. That means the attention span is very, very feeble. If you have to get a message across, your message has to be very, very strong so that you attract and retain and hold their attention. Also, if you have to look at how they learn today, so the learning pattern is different than our generation. So generation Z and Y, they learn in a fragmented way. They like small chunks of information coming to them in pieces of videos, snippets, case studies, anecdotes. They are not somebody who's going to sit for theory for 3 hours, because attention span is so small that they cannot learn. That is one. They like experiential learning because they want to experience the learning, and the learning outcome has to be very clear. The learning outcome has to be aligned with their career aspirations and their growth opportunities, what they foresee into a program before they sign up. They also believe in a lot of collaborative environment and learning along with people. So they are very good at working in teams. If you look at youngsters today, they do projects very, very successfully because they believe that tomorrow they're going to work in an organization where they have to work with other people as well. And also today is a generation which works in a very stimulated environment, academic environment, wherein the learning is by doing. And also they like something that the professors should be very friendly to them so that they can understand and empathize with their pain points, challenges, the way they learn. So they expect a lot of friendship around, because that is what the generation is all about. So these are in terms of their personality behavior and the personal traits, so that if you understand this bit, then you can craft the communication and then you can choose an appropriate medium to reach out to them, let them have the views on your product or services, and then try to get their attention in order to sign up with you, be it education product or be it any product. Coming to the second part of the question, that how COVID has changed, or in the current parlance, see, technology is going to be the biggest influencer and differentiator in whatever we do. We have to just look at our own lives today, that we have become so technology dependent that everything is boxed in a phone, which is called iPhone or Android phone. Similarly, it is more to do with technology adoption, so they are very, very fast. So with changing time, what has happened is you have to first craft a very relevant message for them. I always believe that if you've gotten your segment very clear, then you can target them with an appropriate message, which is positioning, and then find the platform which they are. So if you're expecting that they will read your print advertisement and they will come for sign up, to my mind and my experience, chances have been very less. Print is very good for general branding, public relations, and visibility and engagement, because once you're out of sight, you're out of mind. But the action will only happen once you understand their content consumption behavior. So they go to the website, which pages of website they go, which pages of landing pages they go, where they spend more time, So you have all these analytics today in terms of any CRM which you adopt. I will not like to name the softwares, but they are very adaptive kind of software available today. And then you try to create the customized information and send them a customized information in terms of an email or SMS, a voice blast. Then you are talking one-to-one rather than one-to-many, because gone are the days that you talk one-to-many and you just end up burning your resources. So I think technology is the biggest enabler, biggest influencer today. You just have to understand where your audience lies for a given program and what is that you want to communicate. Because to communicate with them, you have to relate with them. To relate with them, you have to understand their aspirations, that why they want to come to your school, to your university, to your program. And I am a staunch believer of the fact that every student is mapped to a school. So everybody cannot go to IIMs or IITs or say for that matter, ICFI or NMIMS. They have to see that what is that they're looking for, what is that there is an offering, and what is their skill sets. It's a combination of all three. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Excellent, sir. I can see that, many industries, there is one of the first things that any company does is to understand the persona of, whom you're targeting. I can see that you've hit the, topic spot on there. And what my two key takeaways from what you said was, having to understand them deeply well, align your personalization, communication around that, and also have adequate amount of technological intervention, right? Because over the years, I think the millennials are the ones who adopt to technology very, very quickly. So you need to be very, very proactive in ensuring you're there along with them in that platform of Snapchat or WhatsApp and things like that, wherein the impact is the highest. The influence that you could, imply at that moment of time would be the highest. Excellent. So a follow-up on that to you, right, Dr. Malhar. What do you think should be the strategy around aligning inventions or innovation? You again come from a very, very traditional background, right? So where you have also spread across, you have institutions spread across the region, and I'm sure you're catering to various different challenges of your own. So what would be your one bit on the strategic part of, so we spoke about the intervention of personalization, communication, and aligning that with technology. So what would be your strategic thought process towards this?
It's actually a good question, but it has a couple of different verticals to which we need to touch base. So when we say, education and defining a strategy, there is nothing as such strategy which I believe, because as long as you are in a state to negotiate, that's what the strategy is all about. So whether you are an institute, whether you are a student, or whether you are an agency which supports or complements any marketing or admission process, where you stand, it's all about, your stand into that discussion. It's all about strategic discussions. So my core thought is very simple in that. When we see that our group, when we represent that, we started with very conventional thought process. Eventually, we realize there are certain elements that we need to really think about, because some elements, some section of students who has a very typical persona, when we refer to persona, student personas, because, that's how you communicate to them. They're bored of some traditional part. Let's go more confident. Let's be very clear, crisp, precise. This is what I have. Is it something that you are looking for? And that's how we have started observing changes across the institutions, academia, and to their academic pedagogy. We have almost now reaching to the stage where we are talking about education 4, industry 4.0, and this COVID, somehow I see it as an opportunity, because somehow, I see that is as COVID has pushed us to adopt technology in all aspects. So which probably could have taken us almost 10 more years to adopt all the versions of technology. Though we are adaptive, we usually, say very proudly that we stand in 12.49% of people who adopt the changes on very day one, who are risk takers, who adopt, who are open for the new opportunities and challenges in the market. So this rule applies to innovation program, to my IB school, to the new thought of absolutely having liberal education university, absolutely in the northeast of India, which people, start coming to the mainland and we are going to the region. So it is all about what Manish also has referred. It's being more personalization. It's being more localization. What you want and what we can address to that. Marketing and admissions are just functions and processes. If we really concentrate on the value, what they're really looking at, everything will come up that. So my always, thought process, mine or the team which I'm working with, we always look at what value that student or consumer is getting. So we have a distance program, we have an executive program, we have a dedicated, some premium programs with design, IB school, which is one of the premium one in the nature, as well as certain programs. Those are, 50,000, 30,000, 25,000, they're tagged at the prices. So we look at what value proposition we try to add, because that builds the more credibility for that institution. And then accordingly you price, accordingly you can keep thinking about what practices that can be done. As per persona, STP wise, if we really go with it, it's very simple. You need to craft communication separately.
Brilliant.
Not be standard.
I'm really glad you mentioned Education 4.0. I was actually reading an article a couple of days back which said 200 million users out of the 400 million users in India on WhatsApp, which use WhatsApp today, are between the age of 18 to 25. And that's like an eye opener. In fact, that such a big audience has moved from SMSs to WhatsApp altogether. Yes. So quickly, as you mentioned Education 4.0, I remember earlier this year, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman happened to mention that, the top 100 universities in India would be allowed to take up their education online, right? Allowed to execute programs delivery online. Now, what would be your strategy? How would your strategy vary, your marketing and admission strategy vary when it comes to the modes of delivery for a traditional classroom, for a distance, for a online mode, be it a vocational or be it for a UG, PG or disciplinary modes, right? Do you have firstly a different strategy for all of this, a different approach for all of this? If yes, then how does it vary? What is your thought process there?
Yeah, I second that part, because every product has its own nature to market for. So as far as online education is concerned, this 4.0 has forced everyone to change the pedagogy to blended mode. We started our academic deliveries in the month of June 2020, 15 June to be more precise. And we started realizing that the experiences, what the age bracket you referred, nobody has that experience to how to study online. Nobody is habitual to that. The ecosystem what you give them, the experience what you give them into classroom, physical classroom, is not available. And that is something, the first challenge we had. Even if we have a great design institute, but delivering that online itself was a big challenge. So there were certain online platform, learning platforms which has came for our favor. So there are few we have learned from, we have got very exclusive interactions with them, and that we have percolated into our admission process. Trust me, with the niche programs what we have in place, we are not facing any problem. Because as I said, we fall in 12.49, our customers also fall into the same line. They have quickly adopted, everything is online. We have not interacted physically with our students once for this entire season.
Excellent.
It's all 100% online. We have accommodated in terms of psychological questionnaires into the system. So we try to understand what path they are on, what sort of personality they belong, and does that personality trait is required for this particular course or not. So we have adopted certain tools who map these personality traits, there are definitely bots. We have got AI bots. They are very smart because that's the reason they are AI. But that's how something predictive analysis we started getting. And that predictive analysis has helped us. Whom shall we really invest our time with and whom shall we not? So that segregation is done. We have gone 100% online in all aspects. Whether interaction, faculty mentoring, query resolve, everything is 100% online. We are even to a greater extent, we have incorporated bots to the support, academic support ends as well. It is not necessary that every time you need to have faculty in place. There are some basic questions. We have got the bank with us due to the experiences till date. and majority of questions, almost 40% questions of bots are addressing. So which
Brilliant.
Improves my efficiency in terms of their experiences and value propositions.
I find it really interesting what you mentioned, that it is important to align the students' interest to the course. I'm sure the teams have to be highly, intelligent and consultative to be able to do that, right? I don't think that's been a trend in education. I have even spoken to some institutes in rural where, in fact, their own students do the counseling. And this is proven to be effective because they are also the millennial Z, right, to a large extent. So tuning them to be able to connect to that audience becomes much easier. So quickly, Sudhakar sir, iKFI being one of the most prominent brands which I've known to have a very dedicated and focused approach on branding. So I would want you to really tell us what is the impact that branding would have to a world-class admission process? I don't really see institutes any day, looking at branding as a core. We talk about, okay, advertisements, so are you going to provide me leads or not? Are you going to help me get more admissions or not? So this is the only conversation, right? So what is the impact of branding? What role does it play? If you can, tell me in very, very crisp, to the point words, what has been the impact for iKFI being one of the largest institutes in India?
Once again, good afternoon, Suprita, and good afternoon to everyone around the screen. My response is going to be crisp, but it will be characteristic of 2 to 3 important aspects. One, absolutely, I will not use jargon. 2, I would restrict my responses to branding stroke, marketing stroke admissions. And of course, it has to be very, very simple in terms of being useful to someone as we are practicing it now. So I will not sound academic. So that's what I'm trying to say. Now, there are no biggies in marketing. That word is actually not applicable to anyone. It is not the fit who survive. It is the smartest who survive. And it's a greater challenge for the biggies to become smart. It's not true that all the big ones are smart ones. So that's my first reaction to your question. Second, all the organizations and institutions around the world have been faced with what is called a global pandemic situation that we are all currently grappling with. Therefore, it is universal. Now, some of the institutions have done very well and some have not done very well. It's got nothing to do with their size.
Right.
Therefore, in my view, 3 important parameters on which we can look at the shifts that are happening in this area, specific to your question, is people have realized minimalism. The kind of resource spending that they were making earlier, now it is not that they have reduced it, but it is not about all the channels on which they are going to spend, spraying bullets all across, but they have minimalized it and try to spend in the most rewarding channel. I think that's very, very important. That is driven by the emerging situation. And that's also smart. Number 2, people have demolished working in islands. So the silos working within the organizations has actually been demolished and people have come together. In other words, it is collaborative working in the marketing area, branding area, and organization together has put more energy on this function today. So therefore, it is demolishing silos. That is the second point. Third one is making the brand more human. You should come across as more human. In my view, technology is not the differentiator. If people have money to buy, anybody can buy all these tools and adopt these technologies. Technology is basically a democratizer. Therefore, it cannot be a differentiator. What has to be the differentiator for your brand, big or small, is the kind of philosophy with which you hold your institution should be portrayed in the right manner, whether you use technology or not. Yes, technology has to be used. It's a great enabler. It's a great multiplier. We need to use that. So today, whether your technology helps you to become human or not is extremely important, and do not get carried away by the mumbo jumbo of interactions or transactions or the ROIs, the algorithms and the charts. and the graphs that we have. We do use a variety of methods apart from, an institution which is 35 years old with 20 campuses across the country in 17 states will definitely have the infrastructure to use all kinds of tech. We do have that. We have accentuated the use of technology in terms of conversational AI, and we try to stay in touch with our people because the offline is something which has vanished all of a sudden. But then we're trying to blend this with being human as well as being accessible all the time to the target groups. So this is in summary my response to your first question. And as we move forward, I think I'll be able to answer more if that is okay with you.
Brilliant, absolutely, sir. So coming back to Manish ji, you come from a multidisciplinary function as well, and also multi modes, right? You have 17 different schools. You have preschool, you have university, you have distance again. So what is your new age? So when sir mentioned about COVID, sir mentioned about having a human touch in spite of being online. That is very, very critical because yes, technology cannot replace everything, but at the same time, the right use of technology is also very important to know where, when, and how to bring it around, right? So what is your new age? What is your thought on the new age digital marketing strategy? What is your new age acquisition strategy there?
So new age acquisition strategy would be a mix of the old ways of doing things and also to corroborate with the new technologies as we go along. So word of mouth speaks a lot for parents because for brands which are known for quite some time, people have the results proven. So that is a very, very a strong point which has to be corroborated with your other online and digital media. So what is the first thing which we do if you want to know something about a given school or program? We go and check with Mr. Google. So Mr. Google comes as a natural, I would say, help to all of us in our lives, not only students. So the Google search become very, very important tool for looking for, because they are looking, you do not know who is looking out for you unless and until you find a student or a prospective student on your website, on your landing page, or on Google search. So these three are very, very, I would say, pertinent, relevant, and important platforms wherein you can get the audience to hook up on. That's first. Second, the social media, which is also very important. If people are following up you as a brand or as an institution or your thought process, your thought leadership, then they are consuming your content there. Especially YouTube, because now a picture is worth 1,000 words, so video is worth 1,000,000 words itself. So what you can convey in 10 minutes of audio visual by a dean, director, or a faculty, which is very impactful as well, very direct. So that's also a acquisition strategy which is moving up quite well. We see a lot of traction coming out of the YouTube video because people are on the line all the time. I'm talking about generation Z and Y, those who are really online 7 to 8 hours in a given day. So any interactive platform becomes a natural fit, and YouTube and Instagram are two at the top of the mind recall where we see maximum traction as far as UG segment is concerned. For the PG segment, along with Facebook as a third medium, and for the PG segment, LinkedIn works very well because that is where all the conversation happening around career progression, career growth, industry outlook, so on and so forth. So people do consume information there as well. Apart from that, display network plays a very, very important role. If I'm looking for education as a product or services, then I go to various affiliates and various news sites about education, talking about nationally, internationally. People consume data there. So people go to Forbes to get to know which are the top companies, Fortune 500 companies. There you can have your ads and banner plays the way we do it. Plus, native articles are also coming of age wherein a lot of publications do give you a platform where you can speak in depth of over 2,500 words about your university, about your pedagogy, about your legacy, about what you offer to the students, about your programs, student outcome, graduate outcomes, placements, so on and so forth, and kind of faculty also, which you have. So these are some of the top of the mind recall in terms of what we are doing currently to address our students and trying to know that what is that it works. What works is a content for sure. Content was the king, content today is the king, and tomorrow also content is going to be the king. And when I say content in terms of what is that, how do we add value to an aspirant? what he or she is looking for, and what is that we provide, in which way, and how quickly, and how do we do a follow-up action via way of an SMS, email, or a voice blast, so that we are not letting the Generation Z losing interest, because the attention spans are so small that even if they see you today on as a clip in a Hotstar or say a Spotify, they have heard about your ad, but if there's no follow-up mechanism either on the landing page or on the social media post or replying back to them, then possibly they will not consider brand once again. Apart from that, what is also very important is to talk about the outcomes of the alumni over various social media platforms, because end of the day, they want to be there where others are after having studied at any university for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Industry speaks itself for the value which has been added by a given institution. So that also works very, very well. The net, what you have to see is that are you able to find your audience in the right way, and then sending a compelling communication which is more pull driven rather than push driven, because if you keep on pushing content, they are not going to come to you. But if you create exciting content about the program, faculties, graduate outcomes, then I'm sure that there's a matter of time, and the fee structure and the other options which a student has, he or she will evaluate, because students are very, very smart. Student and parent community are one of the most informed community, and then they make a decision to join a university or a business school or any other school. So I think these are the 7-8 aspects which are platforms which are very, very high end, and it has to be in the bouquet of various marketers to invite quality students. Apart from the outreach activity which we do now on webinar, because the physical and social distancing norms are there. So this is just in brief. Happy to answer more.
It's very interesting that you happen to mention these tools. In fact, many a times in our previous episodes also, we have covered, innovate tools like Spotify for that matter. It's very important for a marketeer to be where his target audience is at the end of the day. That, also reminds me that, in fact, in all our sessions, we have had one common question, and I would want to, bring that up today. The question has been, how do you strategize this to a rural audience? And I would want to direct this to Sudhakar sir. If I know, having made the boldest move of having to set up 5 universities in the northeastern region, I think you would be the best person to tell us how do you actually do admissions there, because even today when I speak to many colleges and universities there, right, they say, madam aap jo bhi technology bolo yahan pe kaam nahi karta hai. So you talk about online fees payment, they say people will not pay 10 rupees extra. So how do you tackle this in rural regions? In fact, most of all of your universities except one, I believe, is in non-metro cities. So what is your approach to this, sir?
Thank you, Suprita. That's a very good pointed question. So let me respond elaborately. When I say elaborately, you will not disturb me in between.
Absolutely. Please go ahead, sir.
See, ICFI has had the good fortune of being able to establish universities in metros and non-metros. See, our business schools are largely in metro regions. Your Hyderabad, Bangalore, Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, Delhi, so on and so forth. Whereas the universities are in partly, say, Hyderabad, Jaipur, and other places are basically non-metros like Himachal, Dehradun, Ranchi, Raipur. Apart from that, the northeast locations like Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Sikkim. So these are the locations in which we are established. So therefore, there's a very strong intent of taking quality education to the doorstep of all the students, and that is what is the purpose of this country. If at all, very humbly, we can call ourselves a nation builder in our own small way. I think our philosophy is evident there, and our action is present out there. For the last 10 years, we have had the good fortune of working in all these regions with 11 universities. So it is not an ROI-based model. It is a model which was trying to take quality education, therefore, to all these locations. And most of them are not just non-metros. Most of them are subprime locations from jargon which I can borrow from the markets. So that is the introduction to that. However, we have started doing extremely well in Northeast, contrary to the popular belief that it is very difficult out there. You need to set your foot there, entrench yourself, be one with the community around you, and then slowly they trust you, and then you will become a brand, and the brand that they will hold. It is not the brand that you hold. The ownership of the brand has gone into that communities in these states which you mentioned. So that is a brief story about how we have done. Our Tripura is a gateway to Northeast, where we have a variety of programs with a huge basket of offerings for undergraduate and postgraduate students in terms of engineering to liberal arts to education programs to physiotherapy programs for retarded folks, all kinds of programs that we have. So the winner over there is leadership and the program basket that we have put across in that region. And we have fantastic faculty members over there, a battery of 200 to 250 who work there 24/7, and they are making sure that it is doing extremely well. Our Meghalaya has got two campuses, one in Shillong and another one in Tura. And we get students from Myanmar from there. We get students from Bhutan to Sikkim, and we get students from Nepal to Sikkim. So we have opened markets, we have identified our blue oceans, we have streamlined the program basket, and we customized it to them, and we moved the ownership from ourselves to the community, and that's how the success has come about. Now I'll tell you one more thing. When we do the Google AdWords campaign for these regions, specially targeted ethno-demographic targeting on Google AdWords campaign, or even Facebook campaign for that matter, the response has been pretty good every time, including this season. It is not very difficult with the kind of templates that you have to generate good results. I'm very proud to talk to you about the Meghalaya as a case study where we have got fantastic response. Tripura has got very good response. You know, in Sikkim, what we have tried is we have tried gamification. Gamification is basically to work on a concept where the participant will have to get some reward every time, and every accomplishment will release what is called a chemical called dopamine in your mind. That dopamine is so addictive that you would like to play that again and again. It's not just a game. It could be quiz. It could be a list of achievements. It could be participation which has got a remuneration, which is a participation with the recognition and a badge of honor, so on and so forth. So user-generated content has been exclusively focused in one territory. We have, especially in Sikkim, we have drawn the lessons from that and cross-pollinated across the 10 other campuses that we have across the country. So in each of the campuses, we had an advantage of trying one particular parameter predominantly and use that in other campuses. That is the beauty of having this scale. And every time a student walks into our campuses, either in Northeast or in non-Northeast, scale is equal to branding for us. We have that scale. And right from day one, we've been working on this very, very important paradigm. If scale is not equal to branding, and if the student is not part of a large ecosystem that what it is, then he will feel lost out. We want him to become a national participant in an educational system like that of ICFI. So I think that is the benefit we give to all the aspirants over there. Having said that, let me tell you that in these times, what we have practiced is try and come across as having a very clear purpose, especially more relevant to the current times in COVID. I have to respond is that in all the governments, see, we deal with 11 different governments in 11 different states, and also in other 7 states. Everywhere we have come in our own small, humble way to contribute to the COVID relief funds in a very small way. We have not used great publicity over there. It's a very, very important tightrope that we have to walk there. Your charity should not be clashing with your popularity or publicity. We maintained it very clearly, but we did that. And on the social media, organically, it got shared and it became viral. What we have done at Hyderabad has been replicated in Dehradun, and what has been done in Dehradun has been multiplied in Tripura and in Ranchi, so on and so forth. And so internally, there has been a very good vibrance. Internally, when I say not just employees, the students who are currently studying with you, not the fresh admissions. I think a large number of times people forget those students who are already with you. We should not forget. I think we need to talk to them very nicely. We need to deal with them, because that is the target audience for you, which is going to send out your word of mouth. A student living remotely in West Bengal knows exactly which program in ICFI Dehradun is very good. Not
Yeah.
because Sudhakar talks about all these things in webinars. No, it's not because of me. It is because the existing students of Dehradun talk about their programs and their campuses to their juniors, and then they spread the word of mouth. Therefore, we need to work a great deal of discussions and working with our current students, and that's what we have done. So the purpose of the institution and what the institution stands for in crisis times is what we have demonstrated. Number two, we have also tried to look at what is called the Gen Y, Gen Z is basically trying to understand where is your weight, where is your gravity. This is a very, very important global thing that all of us will have to study. What they're looking at is, earlier we were focusing on various parameters like for example, campus placements, and we are focusing on various other parameters of success for the student. All that will now move from those academic quality like faculty members, where I got the placements, what is the tuition fees, that is the fees for your program. All those things are important. They are table stakes, but much more than that, what is important is the purpose of the organization, and that expectation is there. In a survey recently conducted, about 75% of 18 to 25 age group, whether they are working in organizations or studying in institutions, they have been vocal about understanding their organizations or institutions, where do they stand. Taking a cue from that, I think this growing expectation of prospective students, as they decide about our institutions and their future, they will be laying that kind of focus in these aspects. Therefore, our purpose is extremely important, and it has to be communicated much beyond our rankings, salaries, so on and so forth. I think more importantly, the kind of connection that you have made. So I'll give you one example so that it is very, very clear to all of us. What we have done is we have created alum groups and the current student groups to connect to their own friends and teachers in various cities. So pandemic has thrown us out of gear. You know that.
Hmm.
If you do not connect to what is happening with your fellow classmates or fellow alumni or fellow teachers, then there is nothing human about your brand. There is no demonstrable value for you. So what we have done is to map each of these geographies on a, say, for example, on a Google map location map. We have taken the locations of specific localities where our people are residing, either teachers or students. Those who are in trouble have been marked red, and those who are not in trouble are marked green. And we have connected the green people to take care of the people in red. And at least on telephone, they have reached out and said that we are there should you have any problem. Going to hospital, we are there. If there is a problem in the hospital, we are there. If there is a plasma treatment problem, we are there. So constantly uh, the updates have been sent digitally to all the people to tell them that we are there. That has spread so well, not just among the faculty members and the employees, but among the students and alumni as well. So as a community of ICFI, we have been able to communicate and draw these templates and show those updates digitally to everyone. And then it really, really helped us. So that is what is called being human in practice. When we do that, obviously the good word will go out and probably it will help us, if not this year, next year, or next few years. But then we did that practice. That's a very, very important lesson, and very, very important lesson that we have to keep on learning every year. So admissions is not about call to action that we release on various digital mailers and the social media posts that we have. Admissions will happen because of the pull that you create by being all those three parameters which I mentioned. Larger the organization, more difficult it is. Smaller the organization, it is easier to adapt and be flexible. Therefore, my advice to all the friends who would like to adopt these things, it is very, very important to adopt it straight away. Break all the silos, break all the barriers that you ever had, work together. Otherwise, together we are going to lose. If you don't work together, we're going to lose. See, if marketing is about keeping your eyes and ears open, when you keep your eyes and ears open, you will have to listen to the systems. Internal systems consist of technology analytics as well as human stories because they get the feedback as well to you. When you listen to them, you get to learn from them how to work and solve a particular problem. How, if anybody describes that marketing is about a few executives pushing their content on social media channels and releasing a few advertisements and then search engine marketing, I mean, we do all those things. That's not enough. We need to actually bring more people into the game. It is a strategic function. Strategy is connecting people to process. Process we all know, but people is not restricted only to the marketing executives and the marketing head. Entire faculty team will have to be used very nicely, and then your lessons will have to be drawn from your classrooms. Your process has to be, the delivery process has to be the content for you to do the marketing. Then I think it will work very well. Otherwise, it is silos. Otherwise, you are not demonstrating. The kids are watching you. You're not demonstrating any collaboration, and therefore it will fall apart. The competition is tougher. The situation is very, very bad. I think all of us will have to pull up our socks and get our act together and follow these parameters to do the best in this situation. Thank you.
Absolutely. To be able to care genuinely in all your activity is so I'll repeat that, sir. To be able to care genuinely and display that in every single activity that you do, it takes I would say an expert like you to lead that path. So thank you, sir, for that school of thought. I see 3 different schools of thought, yet the message remains the same. Really excited about the conversation we are having. Highly recommend the audience to put in your questions in the Q&A section down there. You will see a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Drop your questions there. We will be happy to take some questions towards the end of the session. Stay tuned. We also have a rapid fire round coming up. So that brings me to, Dr. Malhar, the last question for the day to you. With these 3 different schools of thought, although I think the question remains, how do you put a world-class admission team? Sir mentioned about, bringing the masses together. It's not one person's or one team's effort at the end of the day. So how do you materialize that? What has been your challenges, or rather, how have you kept your counseling and marketing teams motivated during the pandemic when they were working from home? What are the challenges that you came across? What is your thought process, and how do you put a world-class admission and marketing team together?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question to answer because it has direct implications on results. So when we considered team buildings, so we have done a lot of realignment inside. The two core reasons with it is who can contribute to which process. And those were voluntary calls. It wasn't the case that Malhar has decided that X resource should do the calling part. It is not the case.
Right.
So when we identified people, we identified with very clear intents that where you can contribute. Right. Accordingly, we have got, naturally because of the experience of so much of diversity, we have got internal training mechanisms, internal headhunting people. So we keep on identifying, doesn't matter somebody is expert in SEO. It actually doesn't matter. Is this guy has an ability of analysis? Can this guy replicate some numbers and make some interpretations? Making that interpretations into information to knowledge is a different ballgame. So there is a separate team who probably works on cumulative data. So it is absolutely an integration of different functions. People, those who are interested to contribute to services because they find it more service nature, very humble in talks. And we have observed that complaints have reached to them. Right. And through that has got escalated to the system and not through the counselor's part. Absolutely not. So we have seen people, those who are more growth oriented, very aggressive in nature, were naturally given the growth targets. So they were a part of growth teams, people of serving team. And at the, at the apex part, as I always believed in that, our core understanding is you deliver in classroom or in whatever mode it is, people will start coming back to you. So it is not the case that you need to push more. It is to create a pull, but with a value proposition. And that values, if delivered in class, trust me, you don't need anybody. But unfortunately, with the diversities we have, we need these mechanisms to reach out people. So what we deliver in class, how people have got benefited out of it. And trust me, we trust every individual is a success story. You don't need to be CEO to be called as a success story. If I call a certain student and he says, sir, I'm happy what I'm doing, this guy is a success story. So build more success story with their understanding, because you deliver that in a classroom for which he has come to you. So that's how the overall team structures we have across all our institutions. As an MIT group, I mean, I'm not sure whether how many people know about it, but it's one of the oldest group in Maharashtra, in country as well. So more than some 70 plus institutions we have, 1 lakh students. So it keeps on happening. We try to integrate, but somebody somewhere we miss out. So teams are building internally as well. Externally also, we are trying to accommodate more and more technology component, because as rightly said, with diversity, you need a technology component. It cannot be handled into that. And you certainly need to identify where you need a human touch. And that is a place where we start adding more and more value to it. So that's a one part of your question. Second part is, as far as counselors are concerned, we have adopted on day one. The moment we realized it's going to be long term, we immediately started working on what are their basic requirements. We started delivering them at home, and nobody bothers them after 7. Absolutely not. We do not push them. It's just we incentivize them in such a way that they voluntarily contribute. So no pressures. We have actually coined a lot work from home policies, wherein we earlier, we had a very clear statistic, how many calls a day, how many conversions a day, these typical formats we have come up. Now we don't talk about it. First, my teammate, personally, when I monitor teams, I simply first call, good morning, how are you? Is there anybody in your family who is affected? So please take care of yourself and the family members. Is there anything that you want me to do? Absolutely, there is nothing much we can contribute, but we just try to be connected. And that's something we have seen, that the numbers which we have not achieved into the regular time frame, we have broke all the records with all the numbers, with all the programs. Right. Our innovation program last year we have launched with somewhere 5 lakhs. We have got 8 students last year. We are happy about it. This year we have got 50 students. And the only thing we did is to be connected. We just ensured that they are safe. We have provided all office, hardwares to them. In addition to that, we tried to develop certain COVID policies and given them extra cover. It doesn't cost much, but that is an extended care that we have, tried to give them. Whenever they have came down to, government, when they allowed to have 30%, office staff, we have given them some masks. We have given them hand sanitizer. It is not the case that they can't afford it. We have extended that, and that belongingness has played a very critical role. And trust me, I don't know how to look at it, but our attritions are less. We have not laid off people. I mean, absolutely, the person who is ruthless and unnecessarily arguing, there are exceptions, but majority of people, low performer, medium or high performer, all are with us, all are performing well. So that's a situation. And COVID, COVID has given very mass messages. Money doesn't matter much. People matter more. So with that, we have been retaining our people, our teams are performing across the spectrum.
Brilliant. So, I was just discussing with my founders yesterday about how people and culture form the core of successful organizations. And it's really glad to hear the same out here today as well. I think you've raised some really good points, sir. It's not just about numbers at the end of the day. It's about people. It's about being able to care for them as well. Because if we do that, they will take care of rest of the things for us, and ensures a good sleep for everybody at the end of the day. So excellent. So that brings us to, our rapid fire session. I'm sure all of you are excited. We have, absolutely, sir. We have good questions lined up in the rapid fire. I'll quickly make the poll as well. So we wanted to take a quick poll. I'm making the poll live as well. Brilliant. So I'm requesting the audience to quickly, answer the questions which are displayed on your screen right now. And we will quickly move. We'll quickly move to the rapid fire as you take these questions. Also requesting to put in your questions at the Q&A section below. We will take a few questions towards the end, soon after the rapid fire itself. So I would say, it's a golden opportunity to have some of the, path leaders, benchmark creators in the industry out here, and feel free to, give the best of your questions. And I'm sure they would be very happy to take them and answer them. So that brings me to my rapid fire. I hope all of you are ready.
Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant. So I'll state the question, and we'll set up the series. I think that would make it easier without a conflict. So Manish sir would go first, Sudhakar sir next, and then Dr. Malhar. You would have to answer the rapid fire question in less than a sentence, preferably one word, if not 5 words, or at least keep it to 1 sentence, as short as possible. First question.
Bring it on.
Absolutely, sir. So first question, after having experienced a pandemic this year, what is the one strategy you will double down upon for the next season?
Social plus human.
Constant communication with the target audience.
Excellent. Dr. Malhar.
That was my question, or whose question was that?
It's for all 3 of you. We'll go in series. I would want all 3 of you to answer the rapid fire.
Mine was social plus human.
Brilliant. Manisha, if you can repeat your answer as well once.
I said constant and relevant communication with the target audience.
Brilliant. Dr. Malhar, we still have you with us?
I am really sorry I missed out. I got some disconnectivity stuff in between.
No worries. I'll repeat the question for you. It's a rapid fire question. You need to answer either in 1 word, 5 words, or at least 1 sentence, not more than that. The question is, after having experienced a pandemic, what is the one strategy that you will double down upon for the next season?
More connection with people.
Excellent. My second question, one thing as a marketeer that you have learned about the millennial or Generation Z and Y. Manish, sir, to you.
They don't have patience.
Sudhakar sir.
I'm yet to understand them.
Wow. Okay. Dr. Malhar.
They are very confident and information hungry.
Excellent. I would want to add to that. They are quick decision makers by themselves. Independent decision makers. Great. So the next question, one big mistake that you have done, and that one mistake that you would advise directors to avoid while setting up their admissions and marketing process. Yes, Manish sir.
Do not do general communication or mass communication to all the target audience. It doesn't work.
Sudhakar sir.
Same strategy for all programs will be a disaster. You need to have program-wise marketing strategy, because each one would have a different TG. So that's my advice.
Brilliant. Yes, Dr. Malhar.
If in case you are asking me a mistake is avoid being generalized in nature. Try to take them seriously. Whatever query it comes, please address them.
Okay. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and 0 being the lowest, how big an impact does a dedicated CRM have on the process and success of admissions?
6.
Around 50 to 70%, depending upon the size of the organization and how mature the processes are.
Okay, so that would be a 5 or 6. Dr. Malhar?
Between 7 to 8, 7.5 maximum.
Okay, brilliant. What is that one report you look at the end of every day during your admission season?
Paid
Complaints.
enrollment numbers.
Yes, Manish sir, go ahead.
Paid applications and enrollment numbers every day without fail.
Okay, yes, Sudhakar sir.
It's not the applications, it's not the sales. I look for complaints and discussions and conversations. I want that report. which is generally not sought for.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yes, Dr. Malhar.
Mine is engagement ratios.
Okay.
Just wait.
Okay. Brilliant. I think I do wish now that I had more questions like this. We'll definitely put together more of these. I think this was fun. I can see that you've thoroughly enjoyed having this round as well. Brilliant. So,
Hope we have been able to
undoubtedly,
do justice with the rapid fire question because we are very
absolutely, sir. I think, as I said earlier, it's always a learning curve, and every session I come across so many new things. In fact, that even today, right in the session itself, I've literally heard 3 different schools of thought. But then the underlying message, the underlying practices remains the same, right? So I think that's very, very important as a message, as a takeaway to the audience today, that no matter what you do, which strategy you decide to choose, ensure that there is care, empathy, and your audience at the center of it. That is the most important factor. So Nikhil, I think we could end the poll, right? Brilliant. We have the poll results as
You're
well.
not on time at 5 o'clock. I must appreciate the planning on time.
Absolutely. So we do, we are one organization, as I said, we are people-centric, and we do believe in respecting time at the end of the day. So that brings us to the final session, that is questions from the audience. Would hand over to Nikhil. Nikhil, any questions that you have picked out for us today? Please go ahead.
There are 3 questions, so I will just come up with the first question. So this question is from Aishwarya. We are an EdTech platform for sales and marketing and select our candidates through a screening test. What factors drive more submission for an online admission test for a newly introduced course? Shall I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Can you please repeat that question so that we'll try our best to reach out?
Yeah. So the question was, we are an EdTech platform for sales and marketing and select our candidates through a screening test. What factors drive more submission for an online admission test for a newly introduced course?
Okay, I'll answer first. I have seen many EdTech platforms where people administer different kinds of screening tests for different outcomes, different purposes. You will be very successful if your on-ground marketing team does the B2B very well. 1. 2, your sales story is more on tangibles. Sales story is when you open to talk to a B2B agent out there, what do you talk in the first 1 minute? That is a sales story. It should be based on tangibles. 3, for B2C, because B2C clout is extremely important for you to be successful at B2B. In B2C, I suggest that you have process as your main hero of the content in your communication, which means demonstrate where a few students are taking the screening test, generate the outcome, and show what benefit is there for that. And we should straight away go to that kind of communication. Then you will be successful. Thank you.
I have 3 points for the EdTech program to be successful. It could be any program. 3 things. One is how the program has been structured and the pace of learning, and for the target audience, that what they are looking at, why they are trying to do this program. Second is what are the possibilities, because people do for upskilling, people do for reskilling, and people also do for enhancing their career opportunities and growth and career acceleration. So is that program helps in either of these 3 things? And third is definitely the price point in current times, because price is a very, very important. I'm not saying high price or low price. I'm saying price as a factor is very, very important in the Indian market in order to crack a good EdTech program, because people have to see that end of the day, how does it help them in terms of personal knowledge gratification, in terms of reaching out for new job opportunities, or in terms of getting to pick up more skills. So from the 3 perspectives. So we've been able to crack these 3 things in a product will sell, and then you have to reach out the product to the audience. See why I keep on saying on target audience, because India is a huge country, 130 crore people, and we are spread across nooks and corners of the country. How do you reach out to somebody with a product or services, unless until you are very clear that what you're trying to offer and what others are looking to pick up? If that is sorted, then the rest of the things remains a matter of process and the price.
Right.
Great. So I'll move on to the next question. So this question is from Rakesh. Which of the following results in more admissions for any organization? Bot support or human support?
Yeah, I think uh, absolutes are rare. Don't go by those absolutes. Neither here nor there. You should have both the worlds and be the best in both. When you are using the bots, that has to have best AI-enabled systems which will mine the parameters of purchase from all the customers, be connected, and throw up enough analytics for you to take decisions. It is not that data will have to come and pile at one corner. So you'll have to use technology, not just having it as an ornament and for the sake of talking. The other thing is human is extremely important in education, especially in higher education. It is an involved process, and people would like to see people out there who are actually sending messages to tell them that, hey, you trust me, this is a good institute, you can join. I think that healthy blend of tech and human will lead to long lasting success. Thank you.
Anyone wants to take the question?
Next question.
All right, just give me a second. Let me pull up the question.
This is a very new phenomena. It is good to provide a lot of information which are of standard nature in terms of what is the program about, where is the location, what is the fee structure. End of the day, you can probably address 75 to 80% of the general questions via bot. But end of the day, when it's about decision making, it is largely to do with the information which you provide, say via landing page or any marketing collaterals, and one-to-one touch basing in terms of a call from a call center or the visit at the institution currently, which is not very much possible. But yeah, bots do help to a larger extent in terms of identifying audience. But the product itself will play a very important role in getting picked up. That's very, very important.
All right. So next question. So there are two questions which are pretty similar. So I will group them. What should be the application strategy for next year?
Yeah. You mean the marketing strategy for next year?
Yeah.
The marketing strategy for next year and the 99 more years will have to be fundamentally based on the changing persona of the target group. The target groups are different for different programs, mind you. So it has to be based on certain things which are appealing to those persona. Youngsters working in IT organizations and various other organizations, if they identify themselves as seeking change in consonance with environment, with multiplicity, when I say multi, it's plurality, diversity, inclusiveness, those values will definitely be imbibed by younger ones to them by 2 years or 3 years, and therefore they're going to be in your institutions. So we need to appeal to them with diversity, inclusiveness, and purpose-oriented branding, and that is what we have to communicate very simply and clearly. Next year and 99 more years, that has to happen. But only thing is the persona will keep evolving. We'll have to cater to that. Second, use all the tech that is at your disposal that money can buy. Two, harness that tech. See, this is the beauty of analytics drawn by an e-com giant like Amazon is different from that of any other e-com giant. Therefore, somebody is more successful than other. So you need to harness it very, very nicely to communicate your value and differentiation. You're not different from 100 others. You're different from 10 others within your segment. That is called relevant differentiation. Always worry about relevant differentiation. Don't worry about what 100 others are doing. That's not going to help us at all. Third thing, more pull, more branding, and the overriding focus on long-term community building measures. Communities are your own students in the campus or your own students outside the campus like alumni. Those measures will help us. They will only defend us from other market vagaries, not the employees. I think you need to have multiple defense system being built. So that's my suggestion in 3 terms for future.
Apart from all the points which you mentioned right away by Mr. Sudhakar, apart from this is that also you have to speak about the values of institution, the ethos, the mission, vision, and how They'll be aligned with the target audience, existing students. You have to also speak about how alumni has been contributing to the corporate and the community. What is an existing student think about the institution, about the program, what values they have got into. End of the day, it's a value-based game. If anybody is not getting out of value of the system, then they will not come in for a long term. It could be a short-term branding impact being created, but long term is largely towards measurable graduate outcomes. It could be in terms of their corporate success. It could be in terms of a general success. We don't try to point everything to the corporate success, but the way people go for higher education is for safety and financial security as well. That's very, very important. We should always keep this in mind, because whenever a student decides for any program, there's always going to be a career thing attached to it. That's something we cannot ignore about. So it's about trying to marry the institutional practices, vision, value, ethos, and the way we want to go ahead with, along with the student mindset to join a program, and keeping career at the focal as a focal point. That's very, very important. Rest all are like process driven thing, that how do we go about finding a student or a strategy. Yeah.
Suprita, I would like to jump in now. There was a question which I'm seeing in the chart and question answers directed at me. Would it be an outsourced platform or homegrown platform? What is your choice? So I'll answer that and also try to get into specifics. I was trying to avoid getting into specifics, but let me do this with this question. Okay. We have a blend of homegrown systems because it's an organization that has been in existence for quite some time and they work very well with us. And we also have plugged in the outsourced portions, and that's going to continue. You will have to trust with those vendors and affiliates who you can trust. You cannot trust all of them. But before you give your activities out to them, verify before trusting them. That's very important. And should that fail, you should have something to fall back on. Therefore, that's extremely important. The future of your organization cannot be left to the vagaries of market and also unknown players in them. You have to trust them, look at their processes, how encrypted is the data, and how data generated, leads generated for one client are shared with other clients. What kind of genuinity and what kind of uniqueness they handle the lead management is extremely important for you to decide on how much is homegrown and how much is outsourced. To that extent is fine. But moving forward from there, what is important for us is you need to have your campaign management broken into different parts. Now, core brand campaign management like your Google, your social media, your digital mailers and SEO will have to be your own, basically. It cannot be outsourced. You need to build that expertise within you. Affiliates like, education portals and traffic context-based sites that are anyway outside, it can be given out. Now, gaming and target group activity oriented things like quiz contests and treasure hunts, it can be outsourced very easily, but give it to your students, the current students, they will do a very good job. Third-party influencer marketing like targeting students and institutions and intermediaries, that anyway goes outside. Your field marketing teams will generate that. You just have to capitalize on that. Then comes your brand asset management, where again, you will have to maintain yourself, your social media handles and websites. That's best according to me. Whereas where the attention is actually 365, 24/7. On other things where the attention is moderate, for example, your blogs and podcasts, third-party influencer articles, so on and so forth, and events, that you can slightly outsource. Tactical things like events and associations and sponsorships, of course, you will have to take it up in conjunction with what is available in the market, but see where it, one example I'll give you to avoid is that don't go by the traffic. For example, there are a large number of people in the theater, so you don't get tempted to advertise there. Someone has actually gone to advertise in the urinals because people are spending time there. No, that's not correct. So you will go and advertise where the people are actually gravitating to? No. Education marketing has to be very different, which means you will advertise in porn sites. Now, where will this end? So that's not the right thing. Don't go by the traffic, go by the engagement value at that particular point in time of consuming your marketing material. What are they doing? They are there actually for a movie. You don't have to worry about it. The traffic will come to you if you do a good job. So that differentiation will have to be there. And building online communities will have to be done again internally. Infrastructure management can be partly internal and largely external, like centralized lead management systems and conversational AI or call center augmentation. It can be a mix of both. Feedback management system, once again, can be partly internal, partly external. For example, online reputation management, your web analytics, campus level feedback, and competitive intelligence. It has to be about 30-70 kind of ratio which you have to do. But what is going to be completely internal will be building partnerships with influencers. This cannot be outsourced, both internal influencers and external influencers. Content delivery and communication, you will have the say, you will broadly guide it, mechanics will be managed by outsiders, and then earned media or the PR kind, which we were talking about, is a result of all the work and activities that you do. So it has to be full-blown internal, according to me. Only vehicles and engines that can amplify and propagate will be outside. But the activity-wise and planning and strategy-wise, it has to be. PR is a strategic exercise. It's not a mechanical exercise. I hope I answered that question.
Brilliant. Anything, Dr. Malhar, you would want to add? I mean, Sudhakar sir, I think
he has covered everything in that.
we have. When we started out with Rethink, we visualized creating a thick book about education marketing. And I was recently watching this movie called The Professor and the Madman, of how the dictionary came into being, right? The Oxford Dictionary. And when you were talking, sir, I could actually visualize that book coming into play, coming into reality and existence. So yes, if we do have a few minutes left. So Dr. Malhar, Manisha, if you want to add something to that, undoubtedly for the audience, keep the questions coming. We will definitely take them up offline and try to answer to you within the next day or two maximum.
See, one point I'd like to mention here is in terms of outsource versus not outsource, you have to see the internal capabilities as well, that there are different organizations having different philosophies in terms of having, say, an in-house creative team or having it outsourced. So there are pros and cons of both. It depends upon, because if you have internal resource, if they're not very aligned with and people change jobs, then there is no job continuity and brand continuity for those entry-level roles. So yeah, strategic matters, I agree that it has to be completely with the organization, and also for other non-strategic or tactical measures, one needs to have the control and grip, even if it is outsourced. Whatever you outsource, if you're not going to track that on a daily basis, that where the dollars are going, whether the dollars are fetching the right kind of impressions and the clicks on your website landing page, along with all the content which you generate, is not going to help. You bring best of the best marketing tools, you bring Marketo, you bring Salesforce. Unless you're mapping the customer journey, whether you manage the campaign online or whether inside the organization or whether you outsource. End of the day, if you outsource, then the outsourcing agency would be having multiple clients. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. You as a company will have many universities as a customer. Unless until they know that what is their duty towards their customer in terms of an NDA, in terms of keeping the data sanctity, it's always going to remain a challenge. So it will be a mix of both in terms of organization. For the sake of data security, you put everything internally also. That's a huge risk because a huge investment of putting people on the roles and then try to groom them. And what happens if they leave the job? Because today youngsters, generation Z and Y, they leave the job with even 20% hike. We all see that day in and day out. So it has to be an eclectic mix of the core team, the strategic team who understand the brand, who's there with the brand for quite some time, help in the brand building. Coupled with performance marketing and those things which can be outsourced, but with a very, very strong eye on the sanctity of data and non-disclosure agreement. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just add it to that. Probably when we decide what is to be homegrown and what is to be outsourced, the core value to be with you. So whenever you decide, even if it is marketing or an admission process, what is the core for you? So that information, you can keep it homegrown. So naturally, you need to build competencies based on that. You can choose what is important to you. And certainly at end of the day, security, data security, it's something which is very crucial. Because when you grow in organizations, same data can be recapitalized for your other products. Because in case you have that options available. If it is not, but there are possibilities to bring misuse in that. So have these two basic distinctions. What is core to you, keep it with you homegrown, which is not core to you and can be considered, negotiated and can be worked with a trusted partner. That can be outsourced. So these two distinctions, I believe, can address the most of the the questions related to the respective functions on that lines.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think when you analyze a vendor, you will have to look into the internal systems. One, what is the engine and the practices to develop the leads? Different people have got different practices to develop the leads. They are under pressure to supply a lot of leads. Some of them are verified leads, some of them are non-verified leads. But then what is the source of the leads? You need to get into the detail of what activities they do to attract the leads to themselves. What is the source of their traffic and what methods do they adopt? You need to have visibility to the genesis of the leads, number one. Number two, what are the practices that they have which are enabled by tech today to actually make it foolproof between two clients, which means the leads that are generated by me for X institute will not be sold to Y institute also. How will you make it foolproof? Third, a large number of students are keying in personal data into all these affiliates or vendors. What are the practices for data privacy? These are all organizational ethical issues. If those suppliers and vendors give you the visibility to understand these three parameters, their transparency will help you decide on them. You will not trust them just because they say it. You will trust them because they are ready to show it to you, and you will have a look at it and you are thoroughly convinced that they uphold all these practices. That is number one. In all these things, you will be under constant pressure to increase your numbers and admissions. You never know which one will work and which one will not work. It's not an easy call. Therefore, instead of building your relationships and betting everything on vendors on one hand, which you will do to some extent, but don't rest everything on them. Don't keep all the eggs in one basket. Always build your brand pull without any intermediary in between coming to help you. Trust me, when you stop all your marketing activities, also, you will have bare minimum number of admissions to you. That is the power of your own brand, which perhaps you don't realize. We are worried sometimes, but then your steam will continue for next 2-3 years. You will advertise and stay in the visibility channels for the purpose of furthering it for the next 4-5 years, not for the immediate year. So visibility will have connotations of not just current year, but for the future years as well. And not every advertisement that you release will fetch admissions. So this has to be very clearly understood. And I'm sure under pressure and in a way to balance strategy versus tactics, some of us will make mistakes. Mistakes are made by everyone. We keep learning, but that's the way it is. The most important revenue generator for the institution is you all, that is the marketing team. The rest are all cost centers. You are the only revenue center, only money-making center. So on this happy note, I wish you all the best for 2020 as well as 2021 and future.
Rightly said. Thank you for that, sir. I think would want to quickly add. I think Mr. Sid Shah here has a lot more questions. So we would definitely like to get in touch with you. Do write to us. One of the places to start while looking for a CRM would be ExtraEdge. We are also a CRM focused on education. I'll leave the link below. Very happy to have a session. So would want to quickly wrap up. I think we have overshot a bit, but then as I said, the content that I have myself come across today has been phenomenal. I would want to thank each one of you, pioneers in this education marketing industry, for having agreed to come here and openly having shared your learnings. Yes, sir.
I have one small suggestion. Having spoken so much, all four of us, I think we should jointly author an article on this particular topic of rethinking marketing in the new situation. I think jointly authored by all four of us. And I think Suprita will take care of publishing it. Suprita will also add her inputs and publish it, number one. Apart from the home channel, she will publicize in other places also. Second, I would request Nikhil to remove that picture and show the human face, so that all those people that you are fielding questions, that is the first method of becoming human. Hey, you look very handsome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
In this world, in the current times, all we have is digital on video conferencing tools like this. For this 1 hour or 1.5 hours, if we can put the best face forward and best human face forward, I think we have done it. So I'm with you, Nikhil. You have acceded to my request, and this is the way webinars have to be conducted. Thank you very much. You have done a fantastic job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Extra Edge, for this opportunity. And we hope that the points which you provide would help the audience at large. And as I value the suggestion of Mr. Rao that to put an author article, that will also help condense all the learning which we had today, and it will be beneficial for the society at large. Thank you so very much. For this.
Absolutely done, sir. As I was, saying, that is one of the things closest to my heart. Would want to give back and pay back to this industry as we are in it, and grow and thrive along with each of you along the way. There's so much to learn. There's so much to do. There's so much to grow as well together. So thank you for being here today, and thank you to the audience also for all those brilliant questions and making this a very interactive session. Look forward to releasing the content and the co-authored paper very soon. Nikhil will ensure that we deliver.
Yeah.
So quickly to add a bit about Nikhil, he has been a one-man army, and I can tell you that his strength lies in staying behind the screen in a closed room and executing every task you give him. So that's his comfort zone. But as Mr. Rao rightly said, it's important for us to be interactive, be as close as possible, be as human as possible in these times. So
and thumbs up to the entire audience. Audience has been very, very patient. There are very few audiences which I see is of this level, wherein they have been very, very patient and asking very, very relevant and meaningful questions. So well done, Suprita and Nikhil and Team Extra.
thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Signing off from Bombay. See you guys some other time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful.
Bye, sir. Bye. Bye.
It's
Bye.
beautiful rain outside in Hyderabad. All those Hyderabadis should enjoy now. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, folks. Do drop in. I'm just dropping my email ID. If in case any of you have more questions, would want to reach out, have a quick session, feel free to send out an email to either me or to Nikhil, which is the marketing email address. We look forward to having more sessions like this to bring more content to you.